Congressman Eric Sorensen says Israel doesn't seem to have a plan as the war in Gaza rages on.
I want to see what is the long-term solution for peace, for prosperity.
The Democrat wants Palestinians to have their own land. That story coming up on WGLT's Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. Also on today's show, EV maker Rivian grades itself on sustainability, a concept central to its mission.
It's really important for us that we have and gain visibility into what is a very complex, what is a still new and evolving supply chain.
And Eureka College officials address concerns from alumni about the school's future.
We know that we're not going to be able to sustain the college going forward on tuition alone.
Those stories follow a Bloomington Normal News update, which is just ahead. This is Sound Ideas on 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.
Support for WGLT comes from Bloomington Normal Audiology. Hear My Story continues with local patient Paul Brandt.
So I just went without them for all those years. I talked to somebody who had recently gotten hearing aids and talked about the fact that they were connected to the TV. And so that kind of prompted me to try it again.
Paul's full story can be found at bnaudiology.com.
From the campus of Illinois State University in Normal, this is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. Central Illinois Congressman Eric Sorensen is on a listening tour of medical facilities throughout the district. The first-term Democrat says he wants to set health care priorities to bring back to Washington. Sorensen met Friday with hospital administrators at OSF St. Joseph Medical Center in Bloomington and toured the emergency department. Sorensen tells WGLT's Lauren Warnicki expanding access to care is one area he wants to focus on.
We need to make sure that underserved communities have access to care. We need to make sure that more people in central Illinois have access to insurance so that they can be seen. And there isn't one simple fix here. But look, I mean, I look at what the folks here at OSF are doing, especially in the emergency department, how we have gone through and are now on the other side of a pandemic, and we're doing well. But understanding here that, that the employees are still going through a lot. I mean, hearing some of the stories about some of the violence that is taking place against our healthcare workers and how the number and the prevalence is going up, that's incredibly concerning to me.
Do you see that as in any way being unique to your district? Are there any nuances here that you would advocate for?
So one thing that is, congruent across this district is the fact that we need better access to mental health care. We need to make sure that people have the ability to seek out and be connected to mental health care before there's a crisis. But we need to get over the stigma of mental health. We need to talk about it so that it isn't that you're just going to seek out mental health care. You know what? I got to go to the doctor tonight. That's how we need to turn this around.
These sorts of initiatives take money, of course. So what is your confidence that we can actually have a Congress that agrees on a budget before the deadline?
Well, look, I look whether that's in the Senate or on the House of Representatives side. 85% of members of Congress are there to do the right thing. They're there to serve the people. What we're seeing today, unfortunately, is politics eroding our ability to get the job done. We need to make sure that we're funding the government. We need to make sure that we're funding the government so that we can appropriate the funds to our local projects. I can't do that right now. But bipartisan path forward got us through the CR and will get us to a budget. And so I'm hopeful that what's coming out of the Senate here this week will get to the House and we'll be able to vote on something that will secure the border and give a realistic pathway of citizenship to those who are wanting to cross the southern border legally. We need to focus on these things, and we're going to need Democrats and Republicans to come together to do it.
President Biden has been supportive of immigration reform, of additional funds to the border. Why can't the hard-right Republicans, agree?
Well, unfortunately, we're seeing politics take over, and that is a shame. That's outrageous. That some people want it to get to a point where, the whole place is just set on fire. People want to burn it down. Look, we have to solve issues that are very complex. Whether that is, it's on the southern border, or whether that's funding Ukraine and getting humanitarian aid to Gaza. These are incredibly complex, but we will do a complete disservice to the people we serve if our politics take over in our decision making. We've got to come to the table, understand what are all the facts in front of us, and then make good decisions. But now we're actually seeing politicians say, oh, we shouldn't solve that problem because it'll give political points to my opponent. No, we need to do what's right for the people. That's what I'm focused on.
Funding to Ukraine and funding to Israel have been additional sticking points in passing a budget. People on the far right don't want to give more money to Ukraine. People on the far left don't want to give more money to Israel. You've previously expressed support for Gaza. So where do you come down on those two issues?
Well, look, I want to see what is the light at the end of the tunnel? What is the end goal for the Palestinian people? We need to make sure that they have a state of their own, they have land of their own, they have prosperity, they have health, and they have a future. Those are the things that I'm focused on, while at the same time making sure that Hamas is taken out. Because Hamas is not doing any good for the people of Gaza or the people of the West Bank. And so I think Secretary of State Blinken has done a masterful job in making sure that our American interests are sought out there. But also we need to make sure that we're focused on Ukraine, understanding that this is an investment in democracy. And if we are to abandon Ukraine and allow Russia to just go through, Russia will go to Estonia. Well, Estonia is a member of NATO, and we're obligated to put our troops there to defend Estonia. And so I, as a member of Congress, want to do everything I can to prevent American troops from having to fight against a nuclear Russia. And so, yeah, it's going to take an investment in Ukraine.
The International Court of Justice just recently declared that it's possible, maybe plausible, that Israel has essentially committed war crimes or acts of genocide against the Palestinian people. Where does that come into the budget talks if it is determined that Israel is behaving inappropriately?
I don't believe that Benjamin Netanyahu had a really strong plan for what he was doing. Yes, I think that there were needless deaths. And that is an absolute horrific shame. Right now, I want to see what is the long-term solution for peace, for prosperity, for health, for the future of the innocent people in Gaza and in Palestine. What are we doing today to ensure that there's going to be a two-state solution? And those are the things that I'm focused on there.
You talked about the bipartisan nature of the spending bill that has been passed and the requirement that Mike Johnson reach across the aisle in order to get things done. What are the chances that we're going to see a repeat of Kevin McCarthy's ouster?
Look, I have said from the very beginning we need a bipartisan path forward. We need that. That is how the House of Representatives works best to represent all different styles of legislation and legislating. I've had conversations with the Speaker of the House telling him how I am in a very bipartisan district. In bipartisanship, it works in Central Illinois. We live in diverse communities, and we have a unity of purpose here. And so I told him, I said, I'm looking forward to working with you. And his response to me is he said, with that attitude, I think you're going to be successful here as a member of the House. So I will be pressuring the Speaker of the House for that bipartisan path forward. And if he is willing to come forth with that, then we may be able to give him the votes that he needs to succeed as well.
Congressman Eric Sorensen running for re-election in the 17th District, which includes parts of Bloomington and Normal. He spoke with WGLT's Lauren Warnicki.
Many Israelis have been displaced from their homes since the Hamas attack on October 7th. Rabbis have been visiting them to listen.
People who are so traumatized have a need to talk about what happened to them.
What do the rabbis hear, and how can they help? Tomorrow on Morning Edition from NPR News.
I'm WGLT Morning Edition host Ariel Jones. Wake up with Morning Edition tomorrow morning on 89.1 WGLT.
This is Sound Ideas on WGLT. I'm John Norton. The electric automaker Rivian is out with a new report card tracking its progress on sustainability goals, workplace culture, and employee diversity, and philanthropic efforts. A lot of companies do these types of corporate social responsibility reports, but Rivian's carries extra weight because concern about climate change and the environment are core to its founding and its brand. Anissa Camidoli-Costa is Chief Sustainability Officer at Rivian. In this interview with WGLT's Ryan Denham, Costa starts by talking about energy use at Rivian's plant in Normal and the installation of a solar canopy and wind turbine to generate renewable energy on site.
Combined, what that does, the turbine along with the solar charging yard, is it provides every R1 vehicle its first charge entirely from on-site renewable energy before the vehicle is delivered to our customers. And that's huge. It's significant. It's something we're incredibly proud of. And so with respect to our goal of generating 100% renewable energy on an annual basis, those are two key components for us for our Normal facility. And you might have seen this, but at Normal, we divert right now approximately 82% of our waste. So we're on target to reach our goal of 90% by 2030. But it's something that is very important to us and remains front and center.
Well, your impact report also covers responsible sourcing, where Rivian materials and supplies come from. We've, all seen reporting from around the world where mining for the minerals used in batteries, for instance, has led to human rights abuses in some cases. So I guess what can you tell us about how Rivian sources its materials at this point?
I agree that traceability and visibility, they really serve as the foundation of responsible sourcing, of strategic supplier integrity. And these are issues that I personally have been working on for the last 2 decades plus. And that's why you see, in terms of Rivian's priorities, in line with our goals, is that it's really important for us that we have and gain visibility into what is a very complex, what is a still new and evolving supply chain. So what we're already doing, we've already begun working with our supply chain partners on this front. And we've put in foundational elements such as our supplier code of conduct and a human rights policy as well. And I think in areas as complex as this, it's important to be a part of really rigorous multi-stakeholder initiatives. And this is something that we're all in on, Ryan. So for example, we are a member of IRMA, which is the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance. We're a member of the Responsible Business Alliance, and we're also a member of the Public-Private Alliance. Because at the end of the day, the EV sector really can and needs to be a positive force in these critical supply chains. But it is going to take collaboration, it's going to take thoughtfulness, and it's certainly going to take vision for what the future can bring and should bring. So we're all going to collectively need to work together to live up to the potential of this very important just transition, because no one company can do this alone. But at Rivian, collaboration is such a key part of how we aim to operate.
If the entire world were to transition to EVs tomorrow, do we run the risk of, I think as you put it in the report, just shifting emissions from tailpipes to power plants?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I think, for Rivian, it's really important that we are looking at where our electricity is being sourced, right? And we want to make sure that we are looking at how we're procuring our renewable energy and what role we're playing in this vision overall. So it's important for us to actively support increasing renewable energy on the grid toward our vision for the 24/7 carbon-free grid. It's a two-pronged approach, as I mentioned, which is important because where our electricity is more concentrated, so for Normal is a good example, we've set a goal of procuring over 90% hourly carbon-free electricity. Where our electricity footprint is more distributed, to your question, right, such as charging, where we don't control the hours of the day when people charge, what we're doing here is we're taking an emissions-first approach to sourcing renewable energy and electricity. So we're looking at where our renewable electricity investments can make the greatest impact, both on the grid itself as well as on communities and the environment.
Well, I imagine that a lot of what I'm seeing in this impact report is not necessarily the cheapest way of operating a business. So I wonder how often is there tension between Rivian's business needs, as a publicly traded company with shareholders and quarterly earnings reports and all that, and its sustainability and environmental goals.
Yeah, well, it's important to note that because we're not yet a profitable business, and our products, of course, though, are a part of the solution to climate change, right? Our growth and our ability to scale is, in and of itself, an important part of maximizing Rivian's positive impact in the world. So, as we were developing our goals, we really thought hard about the balance between ambition, and there's no shortfall of that here at Rivian, right? But with what is realistic for us at this point in our path to profitability. I would also say that, and you probably hear this often, but it's because it's true. It's not necessarily more expensive to find more sustainable pathways and alternatives. And that is something that we always remember and keep front and center throughout the business so that we're not always viewing things as a trade-off.
Another piece of the impact report is what it's like to work at Rivian, including your diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging goals. I wanted to ask about the belonging index that the impact report refers to. Can you tell me about the belonging index and what that is and what sort of trajectory you're on with that?
Yes, and I think just first I have to say, because it's so important, that we really feel at Rivian that diversity fuels innovation and it fosters creativity. And those are two key elements that make Rivian successful. So as part of that, what we're doing is we have a range of programs that support diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and that help us pursue those goals. And those initiatives range from internal mobility, allyship, learning and development, career development, hiring, and more. And it's a real passion point for everyone at the company. It's led, of course, by our people team, and it's something that we're working to continue and strengthen. The belonging index is the way that we track employee sentiment on belonging through our regular surveys. So it's an important way that we are able to capture and see our progress in this area.
That's Anissa Camadoli Costa, the Chief Sustainability Officer at Rivian. She spoke with WGLT's Ryan Denham. You can find a link to the full Rivian Impact Report at WGLT.org. Stories and conversations around Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, and Central Illinois. This is WGLT's Sound Ideas. I'm John Norton. Eureka College alumni, former employees, and other stakeholders have some questions about the future of the college. Among a climate of declining enrollment, rising deficits, and unexpected closures, small private colleges are facing a slew of challenges. Colin Choate from sister station WCBU joins us to discuss the issues and the Facebook group that led to a surge of interest in the state of Ronald Reagan's alma mater. So, Colin, part of this story starts with the creation of a Facebook group. Can you give us an idea what the group's about and how did it all start?
So the Facebook group Eureka College Alumni Updates was started by a 2008 graduate named Aaron Pilcher. He told me he started the page shortly after Eureka's football coach Kurt Barth announced his resignation. The day the page was created is actually December 29th, which is right around 10 days after that announcement. At last check, the page had just under 1,300 members, and the posts vary a lot on that page. Some members dive really deep into the college's data and make infographics. Others just kind of reminisce about good times at the school. And there are others who use it mostly as a place to voice their criticism of the college's administrators and board.
Okay, so what's going on there? I mean, football, basketball coaches, they kind of come and go. Is there something more going on?
Well, it's difficult to say definitively what's going on and what the concerns are for a group that large and varied, but there are some recurring themes. In order to get sort of an outside perspective, I talked to a man named Gary Stocker. He's a former chief of staff at Westminster College, which is a small private school in Fulton, Missouri. Now he's the founder of College Viability, which is an app that compiles public data about colleges, so it's easy to compare. You can see that app in the story. He points out that some of the trends at Eureka between around 2014 to 2021, which 2021 is the last year that publicly reported data is available. He mentions tuition fees and revenue, which have steadily declined at Eureka over that period, and you can see a steady decline in enrollment too. And it's worth noting that these statistics Stocker mentions echo a lot of the same ones brought up by the alumni that I spoke with for this story.
Okay, so you've spoken with a number of alumni. What does Eureka College administration, what are they saying about this, and what are they doing about it?
So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to speak with Eureka President Jamel Wright. She was unavailable for our interview, but I did speak with the Board of Trustees President Bo Underwood about a lot of these issues, pretty in depth. He says what we've discussed before, this is a difficult environment for small private institutions. And here's Underwood talking about that decrease in tuition and fees revenue we mentioned and that Stocker pointed out.
So we know that we're not going to be able to sustain the college going forward on tuition alone. That model is no longer going to work in higher ed for any school. So that's why we're having to do more relying on donor support. That's why we've sought to diversify our revenue by reaching out for more grant opportunities.
Underwood tells me they're going to be aggressive about using that grant funding to target programs like student tutoring, improving campus infrastructure, these projects and programs that will improve the things that we talked about earlier, the graduation rates, the enrollment, the student attraction and retention. And on that enrollment piece, Underwood tells me that they saw a total enrollment of 573 this fall, which is a notable increase from where it was in all of that data we were talking about.
Okay, a lot of statistics here. What else are you hearing from alumni?
So some of the alumni I talked to mentioned upcoming debt obligations. You can see financial audits from 2022 on ProPublica that show the school has 2 loans with Midlands State Bank that are coming due in March 2025. So just a little over a year, and those loans total around $10 million. So Underwood tells me very generally that the college refinanced during the pandemic and lessened its debt load by quite a bit, and they feel prepared to navigate this upcoming debt as well, and they believe they will fulfill their debt obligations. There's some more specifics with the alumni, other topics, but you can find those in the story. There are a lot of them. I want to mention that a commonality among all the alumni I talked to is that they want the school to thrive. They want to see it still there. Near the end of my reporting process, I talked to Stephen Kirk, a former alumni board president, and he told me at length about his Eureka College experiences, being able to pursue a lot of opportunities there, being able to feel like the campus is a family, and he really wants to preserve that.
Well, Colin, thank you so much for this report. Really appreciate you digging into this story and many others that you do. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, John.
Today, Eureka College announced it has named a new head football coach, former NFL veteran Randy Starks. He replaces Kurt Barth, who was the winningest coach in school history. Barth and the college have said little about his resignation. And that's Sound Ideas today, WGLT's news magazine, made possible in part by Bloomington Normal Audiology. I'm John Norton. Story help from WGLT's Ryan Denham and Lauren Warnicki today. You also had some help from Colin Shope, sister station WCBU. Ryan Toohey edits the show. This is 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.